for the call. And I also serve on the Farmer Veteran Coalition of Wisconsin Board of Directors. Good to see everybody.
Super. And Candy?
Hello, this is Candy with Colorado AgrAbility Project.
Thank you. And Beth Graybaugh.
Hi, Beth Graybaugh, Veterans in Agriculture. I'm located by Des Moines, Iowa.
Super. Medlicott?
Jay Medlicott. I'm with North Carolina Assistive Technology. We work with AgrAbility here in
Super.
North Carolina.
Super. Thank you. Linda Tar?
From Indiana, working with the Indiana Ag Vets.
Thank you. Randy Bagley?
Hi, I'm Randall Bagley. I'm the program coordinator for AgrAbility of Utah.
Super. Exciting. Eileen Legault?
Good afternoon, Eileen Legault with University of Tennessee Extension with Tennessee AgrAbility, and I'm on the Ag Advisory Committee for Farmer Veteran Coalition of Tennessee.
Thank you. Apologize for the
It's fine.
mispronunciation. Grant Weber?
Yeah, Grant Weber, Vets on the Farm out of Spokane, Washington, also with the Spokane Conservation District, and on the board for Washington FBC.
Super. Is it Marie McIntyre?
Hi, everybody. It's Izza here. I am with the Center for Land-Based Learning. I am the Grants and Contracts Manager. I'm also an Army veteran and very much involved with the California, the California chapter of FBC that's not fully formed yet.
Super. Lindsay Head?
Hey, yeah, I'm Lindsay Head. I'm with Florida AgrAbility. We are in our second grant year, so I'm just trying to gain some more information on what we're doing with these guys.
Super. And Taryn Varney?
Hi, everyone. Taryn Varney with KCARD, Kentucky Center for Ag and Rural Development. We do the Kentucky Ag Vets program through the CSP. And I'm actually standing in for Spencer Gwynn. I think he usually comes to this meeting. He's on vacation this week, so we'll be thinking of him at the beach while I sit in.
That's where I was last week, so I completely understand that. That's an awesome time. So, Anne Marie, did you want to speak a little bit about yourself, and I'll bring up your slides?
I didn't get to introduce myself.
I'm sorry. Who'd I miss? Oh, Ann Martin. I'm sorry. I'm doing push-ups now for you, Ann.
Yeah, no kidding. Add attention. Ann Martin, Marine Corps veteran, and I work for Maine AgrAbility as a veteran outreach coordinator, but I'm also working with California, setting up the California chapter of the Farmer Veteran Coalition.
Super. And did I miss anybody else so I can do more push-ups?
I won't make you do push-ups, Joe. This is Beth Behrens.
Thank you. Thank you, Beth.
Michigan AgrAbility, outreach and communications coordinator for Michigan AgrAbility, also on Michigan's FBC board.
Super. And I see Ken Devan just joined us. Ken, can you give us a little quick about yourself? He may not hear me yet. Anybody else I missed? Okay, I'm gonna screen share, and if you want to go ahead.
Real quick, I'm going to turn my video off just so I'm not streaming so much, but I wanted to officially say hi to everybody. So thanks for having me.
Okay, no, thank you. Thank you for providing us this opportunity. So like I said, we are working with the VA to kind of get that connection with AgrAbility at the state levels a little closer. They have an official partnership program. And Anne Marie is going to tell us a little bit about the VA and take any questions we might have. So Anne Marie, go ahead.
I appreciate that. If you want to go to the next slide. And this is a PowerPoint that I put together for the conference or the workshop that y'all had in Indianapolis. So I'm just going to briefly hit this. for everybody's knowledge, if you're not aware, the big VA has 3 branches. So as you can see here, the Veterans Benefit Administration, Veterans Health Administration, and then the National Cemetery Administration. I'm coming to you from the Veterans Health Administration, the middle one. Most people, when they think of vocational rehabilitation and the VA, they are thinking typically of the one on the left, Veterans Benefits Administration. I'm going to just briefly touch on that just so you understand the difference. But my focus here today is on Veterans Health Administration. If you want to go to the next slide. Okay, so as we talk about the mission of Veterans Health, it's important to understand we're coming from a healthcare perspective. So our goal is to improve the physical and mental well-being of the veterans that we're serving. And historically, vocational rehabilitation was born in the VA. And so the VA helping veterans who have disabilities obtain and maintain meaningful employment has long been ingrained in the whole VA system, which is wonderful. This is a benefit of healthcare that is not seen in the private world. Next slide. So as we look at vocational rehabilitation services in the VHA, the VA recognizes the value of work and treatment and recovery. We provide veterans with vocational counseling and guidance, therapeutic work, and then evidence-based employment supports. We're integrated into a veteran's healthcare. The mission of vocational rehabilitation is really to promote recovery that fosters a veteran's self-esteem, their dignity, respect, and independence. Service veterans with barriers to employment and overcoming those barriers, whether they be medical barriers, psychological barriers, or even psychosocial barriers. So that would be more of someone who is homeless or someone who has like a criminal background that might be a barrier to employment. And then again, our goal is to assist the veterans with obtaining and then maintaining meaningful competitive employment. We're not just a jobs program. We're not a temp service agency plugging veterans into any job that comes available, because we find historically that putting a veteran or anybody into any job isn't helpful. It's finding that meaningful job for that individual person. That's what's going to promote an overall recovery for them. That's what's going to promote their health and well-being and assist them with maintaining that job and even pursuing more of career trajectory, if you will, on going up the career ladder. The credo in Voc Rehab here is if a veteran wants to work, we believe that they can indeed work. And what that means for the individual veteran, if a veteran wants to work 5 hours a week, then that's what we assist the veteran with finding. If the veteran wants to work in a specific location or a specific environment, then that's what we assist with helping the veteran find that, which is why this relationship with AgrAbility is so meaningful and so important, because there are veterans who want to do some sort of agricultural experience. They want to be able to grow and cultivate and do this type of work. And we've not, as a VA and VHA, we've not done a great job of pairing veterans with this type of work, just because it's so unique and so specific. So that's why this relationship is so exciting. Next slide, please. So when you think of our services, this is the visual layout, if you will, of our services. So under vocational rehabilitation, you can see the two green squares. We've got vocational assistance, and that service does not require any form of consult or any form of official referral. Whereas the other green square on the right-hand side, as you can see here, compensated work therapy. This is the part of our program that is the vocational rehabilitation piece of it, where we're assisting veterans with their therapeutic needs and overcoming those barriers. It might be with accommodations, it might be with specific therapies and integrated into different treatment teams in order to provide a holistic all-around support for the veteran. So the first program I'm going to talk about is our transitional work program. And this is just briefly where our program, for lack of a better way of saying it, contracts with an employer, or we have an agreement with an employer, an MOA. And whether it be the VA or whether it be a community employer, we place veterans into particular spots with the agreement of that employer, and the veteran works there as part of their therapy, as part of their VA healthcare. They work in that particular spot. Again, whether that's in the VA or in the community, the employer pays the CWT program, the CWT program pays the veteran, and the veteran is followed along by a rehabilitation counselor or a vocational rehabilitation specialist who provides the support needed and the integration piece with their treatment team to provide the veteran with the assistance, the feedback in order to make the necessary changes to move forward into competitive employment. The next program, the next blue square, is supported employment. This is an evidence-based supported employment. So there's a specific model that we follow in this program. So this program is geared towards veterans who have more significant impairments, veterans who have quite a bit of barriers to employment. We typically will see veterans with some sort of psychosis diagnosis, schizophrenia, bipolar. Those are kind of the typical diagnoses we would see in this program, but this program is not limited to a specific diagnosis. This program is there for veterans who require the intensity and the supports needed. So this is more of an individual placement where a veteran, if you look at the transitional work program that I just talked about, we're placing a veteran into a particular spot. Sometimes that's a square peg and into a round hole, but we make that work because this is the opportunity we've got. Whereas supported employment, we go out and specifically develop a specific job on behalf of that veteran. So we work with the veteran identifying, you want to work full-time, you want to work part-time, do you want to work in this community, do you want to do this type of work, and really find that specific job in order to make a very specific match for that veteran. We have the ability to do job coaching in this program. This is a time unlimited program. As long as there is a therapeutic need for the veteran to obtain, or a therapeutic need for the veteran to receive the services and supports needed, then they can stay into that program. The next program is the purple one, the community-based employment services. This is modeled after our supported employment program. So this is I would say it's a lighter version of supported employment. So the veterans might not need the exact intensity of the services, but they do need that individual support. They do have more individual goals. They might not need the specific services of transitional work. They might not need all the intensive services of supported employment, but they still need some of that. So this is community-based employment services is meant to really kind of hit that need. The next purple one is our supported education for those veterans who have career goals of going to school and pursuing a job that requires some sort of education and formalized training. We have the ability to provide the supports necessary in order to help them identify what their career goal is and to pursue that goal. Now, we in VHA, vocational rehabilitation, do not have funds to send veterans to school. So we would then connect them with the available resources, whether that be state vocational rehabilitation or VBA, as I talked about earlier, that veterans benefits if they're service connected and eligible to tap into those service connection entitlements, connecting with them with those, or whether it be their GI Bill or other forms of assistance and resources. And then the last one is our supported self-employment. This is for veterans who have the desire to really work for themselves. Their goal is self-employment and assisting them and connecting them with the available community resources in putting together a business plan and pursuing that business plan, implementing it to the best of our ability. So the 3 purple squares that you see are services that are not mandated at every site. So some VAs will have 1, 2, or all 3 of those, and some might not have any of the purple squares. But the 2 blue squares, those are mandated services at every VA. Next slide. Okay, so I did talk about transitional work. As you can see here, the goal of transitional work is to really provide support to the veteran, to help build up their physical work tolerance. So we call that work hardening, to allow them an experience in which they work on getting up and going to work every day. Veterans who have been in this program have a long history potentially of not being employed. So building up that work tolerance is not just getting up and going to work every day, but it's also potentially working in a full shift, an 8-hour day. If you haven't worked in a long time, that can be quite exhausting. So really working with the veteran sometimes to build up that physical work tolerance. The other really special niche of this program is the soft skill development piece of this, that with the counseling and the groups that we provide in this program, we really work on the soft skill development. So when we think of people who get fired from positions, typically it's not because they can't do the work. Lots of times people struggle on the job because of those interpersonal skills. So this program really works on developing and building up someone's soft skills, if you will. So working on how to accept supervision from a supervisor, how to get along with their colleagues and their coworkers, really focusing in on communication skills. So if you're not happy with a coworker or a colleague, how do you express that? And rather than going and utilizing old maladaptive types of behaviors that aren't good, whether it be aggressive style of communication or passive aggressive style of communication or even passive style of communication, really working on those assertiveness skills in order to address whatever issues are going on and building up the veteran's ability to get along with others on the work site and get along with coworkers and customers. So this really the benefits of this transitional work experience, and it is limited term, it is transitional in nature. And again, the goal of it is competitive employment. Next slide. And then as yep, supported employment. Perfect. So as I talked about with supported employment, this is an evidence-based program. So it's very prescriptive on how we go about administering it. One of the real benefits of this program is the true nature of integration with the different treatment teams. So as I talked about, that veterans typically have some form of serious mental illness. The VA has lots of different clinical programs that they have in order to meet the needs of these various populations. As you can see, someone who has psychosis or PTSD or substance use disorder. So we've got treatment programs across the board that help address the needs of all these unique populations. So our supported employment program is integrated into the various treatment teams and really is part of that team and collaborates with the team. So on the team, you'll find typically a psychologist, social workers, sometimes we have peer support specialists, sometimes we have psychiatrists on the treatment team, sometimes it's nurses. It all depends really on what's going on with the veteran and what the treatment team will consist of. So the team meets regularly, typically once a week, and the rehab counselor or the voc rehab specialist will be a part of that team discussing what's going on with the veteran, whether it be with their job search or while they're in a particular job, and bring that information back to the treatment team. Likewise, the treatment team also provides the counselor with what's going on with the veteran. You know, if there's a med change, the psychiatrist would talk about meds are changing, you might see this, or this on the job. So as we can know what to expect and provide the appropriate services in order to help support the veteran during these changes or during these issues that are going on. Next slide. So like I talked about community-based employment services, you know, I don't have a whole lot more to really expand upon that, just because this is a service that is not required at every medical center. I would say out of the 3 purple squares that you saw earlier, this one would be probably the most common that you will see at most medical centers that is not required. Again, it's a lighter version of supported employment. So veterans typically will be provided assistance with finding a job in the community that's consistent with their goals. They might not need the ongoing long-term levels of support and assistance with maintaining that job, like the folks in supported employment. But again, this is more individualized. This is assisting veterans with finding and obtaining competitive employment right away, rather than the difference with transitional work with having that work experience first before the job search. Next slide. So then this is who's in our national office. Dr. Shanna Bakken is the national director. Joe Carlamongo is, his focus is typically on the supported employment and community-based employment services. And then he also does the supported self-employment. You can see me, I'm in the middle there. My focus is more on transitional work, supported education, and then vocational assistance. I don't think, unless if you're in the VA, you would have access to our internal SharePoint site, but everyone should have access to that external CWT and SharePoint site. So I think that's it. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Hey, so this is Joe. Thank you, Anne Marie.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to do is kind of put it in perspective for everybody and where kind of I think AgrAbility and this group of people can play an awesome role. So what I kind of see within AgrAbility and really the partnership with the VA is really it's a partnership of communication and knowledge about each other. So, you know, we're gonna give the VA information for each state. It's not like the AgrAbility at the national level is going to manage a specific program for this. Every state has a different program. What we expect to do kind of at the national level is try to connect the VAs with the state resources or even more local than that if we can. And then when a veteran comes to the VA and wants to get work in agriculture, the VA or the compensated work therapy case manager there knows who to call and how to connect and how to make that work. So what I could foresee in like Indiana, where we have an ag vet grant, is that a veteran comes to the VA, says, I want to get into agriculture. We synergize that with Linda Tarr, who's with Hoosier Uplands that holds the grant. And then we work that with a farm and we kind of just marry it up. We're gonna communicate, we're gonna marry it up here in Indiana so that veteran gets what they need. So Issa, do you have a question?
Yeah, first I just wanted to say thank you so much for the presentation. It was really really informative. There was a lot that I didn't know, and so I really appreciate this. My question is, how does the VHA connect with local resources? Like I know AgrAbility has a relationship with VHA in this aspect, but if you are a local organization that supports veterans, how does the VHA facilitate that relationship at a local level? And how can we be a part of it?
That's a great question. And typically, on a national level, we have, like I said, this website. So lots of times employers will Google how to connect with the VA to hire veterans, and they'll end up on our website. So one of my roles on a national level is to field those emails. So, you know, every week I get a handful of these emails where employer so-and-so wanting to hire veterans in this area, this area, this area. So today there was an employer that I think there was 10 different states that they wanted connections with. So my role then is to connect them to those specific CWT programs that are in the local area for them. So I will reach out and make those introductions to both of them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, thank you, Issa. So really, again, it's a at the AgrAbility level, it's going to be a marrying of resources and a marrying of knowledge more than an action, and we're going to let that action really occur at a lower level, because that's where I think the veteran gets the most assistance. Ken, go ahead.
Howdy, can you hear?
Yep, sure can.
Okay, technology, it does work. I'm the president of the Kansas Farmers Veteran Coalition, and work with Carrie Ebert, who Kansas had AgrAbility, and hopefully we'll get it back here in the state. But we've probably spent a year and a half trying to break into the Leavenworth VA, pulling in some, the Master Gardeners, Farmer Veteran Coalition of Kansas, the Save Farm, and it has just been just nothing but bureaucrats at the the domiciliary, we talked about putting in a scent garden. Now, the domiciliary in VA focuses primarily on drug and alcohol abuse, in their short time. But we laid out a scent garden, which some research from the VA Research Center down in Florida said that was beneficial, to put in raised beds. And like I said, the good news is this actually 2 days ago, they finally said, yes, we're going to convert one of the old smoke shacks into a greenhouse.
Yeah.
And so we're doing things like that, but it has been a 1.5-year slog of at the worker bee level, they want to do it. I showed them some success stories of beekeeping at some other VAs, and they're like, oh, bees are dangerous. We can't do that. Talking with some of the vets, said like, yeah, it'd be fun to do. But it's just this bureaucratic, no is the first answer, and silos of leaders who don't talk. And you get one that says, let's do it. And then 3 or 4 others that say, no, don't want to do it. We got too much on our plate. So we're trying to incorporate them into like our farm tour series here in Kansas for vets. Got some interest, but we're trying to do it at a couple of different VAs here in Kansas, but it has been a fight. And we're not asking for them to do anything. We've got volunteers, we've got resources, and we're just trying to, if 51% of our vets come from a rural background, then 51% of the vets in the VA have, gotten their hands dirty or bucked a bale of hay. Well, at least the old ones have.
Sure.
And so like I said, it's just been, I listened to your brief. It sounded great. We even had, let's bring some local chefs in, cook some of the produce that they've grown. And they're like, well, we don't want to do that. I said, well, the potential there for, the chefs are always looking for cooks or a sous chef or something. There's so many offshoots that we can help them, but it is just, while maybe up at national VA, you're thinking this, down here at the muddy boots level, it is a slog. It is a fight.
No, I hear you. And having been at the local level for 20 years, I get where you're coming from, and I have definitely seen more legislation over the years as attorneys get more and more involved with all the things you can't do anymore. So you talk about chefs cooking. I remember at my VA, there was a very specific policy. There is no cooking for anybody, unless if you have certain licenses and are inspected by the state and da 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 da. So I get where you're coming from and how, you're trying to do a good thing and met with barriers and resistance, and that's not helpful, and I apologize for that. At this point, reach out to me and feel free to connect with me, and I'll see if I can help navigate some of those waters on a national level. Each VA, though, depending on what kind of VA they are, if they're on the National Historic Registry, there's certain things you can and cannot do on those properties that and that would include gardening. I remember there was, again, one time I had a garden at my VA that we put in, and we didn't do it right with the historical bricks. We did not do that right, and it had to be taken down. And so, so something with a good heart and you meant well went wrong. So I hear you.
Hey, Ken, this is Joe. I think one of the solutions we're trying to provide at AgrAbility level for the beginning veteran farmers or to get into the VAs, first of all, when this gets signed, it's a partnership at the national level and something you can use with the VA and say, hey, look, you've partnered, here's your contacts at the national level. Like Ann mentioned, to kind of enter or sway the local. It also gives you formal introductions. I'll tell you, just by tapping into a lot of VAs, even as the National AgrAbility Project, they're sometimes very much at arm's length, and for good reason, because there's a lot of nonprofits out there that do bad things for veterans. So this hopefully legitimizes it a little bit, and we can go arm in arm as a USDA NIFA funded organization under Purdue with Manshi Ramdas at the USDA and say, hey, this is a good thing versus somebody with a good idea that's a bit hokey. I've looked at your farm programs out there in Kansas, and that one vet farm is very impressive. So I think there's goodness, and maybe it just takes somebody else's voice to really legitimize it. That's just kind of my thoughts on it, and we hope this does. Any more questions out there or, about the VA or what we're trying to do with it? We kind of see the next step is it's going through the staffing process at Purdue now. Dr. Fields is deciding kind of how that's going to work and what that's going to look like. We're a little different element of Purdue than straight Purdue. So he's working on that, and we should get something soon on that. And then, we're going to continue even before the memorandum of agreement is signed or understanding to invite Anne Marie and her team to these types of meetings to just hear things like what Ken's saying and give that extra ability. So Issa, did you have a question?
Yeah, last one, I promise. On the slide on supported employment, the supported employment program,
Yes.
it listed the physical disabilities as traumatic brain injury and spinal cord. Were those just examples or were
Yes.
those exclusive? Okay.
Those are just examples. Lots of VAs have specific programs like I talked about for different populations. So we have spinal cord injury centers around the United States, and we have polytrauma centers across the United States. And so, but certainly not limited to those.
Okay, thank you.
Joe, I
Deshauna?
have an.
Oh, go ahead.
Nope, go ahead, Deshauna. I have a question. Just put me in the hopper, Joe.
Okay, Bev. Go ahead, Deshauna.
No problem. Just a couple of quick questions. In looking at the website, the external site, and then looking around and having dug around, trying to find some data, how it is, because again, websites are, deep within websites. First off, is there a list, of the different programs that you went over saying, knowing they're not necessarily consistent in every location or every state, is there a list somewhere that talks about which state has which? That was one question.
No, there's not.
Okay. And then the follow-up on that, and the reason I asked that is because in trying to get a hold of some of the folks through the VHA and some of those angles, the other question I had is there, this is high level, of course, now, each state might be different, but like on the federal level, has there been a push that a lot of these offices or on the state level are actually working remote? Because I've had a hard time getting a hold of folks because someone told me here that everyone was actually remote now within that division for like what would have the VR piece. Is there something nationally that's going with that, or is that just state by state?
That is station by station. So within the state, two different VAs could have two different responses. So it's just individualized. If you have troubles reaching out to a CWT program, please don't hesitate to connect with me. I'm more than happy to chase people down and figure out how to make those connections.
Okay. And I recognize that. I mean, the caseload is immense, I can imagine, right? So I totally understand that.
They are not. So
okay.
Okay. Let me clarify that. When you say big caseloads, that's more traditional voc rehab that you would see in state voc rehab and VBA. So in veterans healthcare, our caseloads are at maximum should be about 30. That's a maximum. In supported employment, we try to stay closer to 20. So the intensity is far more. We're the ones doing the clinical work. So we are clinicians working with veterans one-on-one and in group therapy in order to provide these services. So it's meant to be more intensive.
Okay. All right. So that instead of necessarily caseload, it's just the amount of basic, maybe just workload and intensity with cases,
Yes.
which make
Yes.
individual cases. Okay. And that makes sense. Okay. Well, maybe I'll, thank you. I'll maybe reach out to you. I was just trying to see if I could find a list so that it might be easier to
Yeah, I'm
navigate which
sorry.
programs. No, that's all right. Totally understand. Thanks.
Yes.
Go ahead,
What
Bev.
one thing I would like to say is having been new to this AgrAbility, I've done a lot of research and connecting with the different programs that have been using AgrAbility and these connections along with the VA Farms programs. And so I've learned a lot in the last couple of months as far as how CWT programs have partnered together. And it's really amazing work being able to see these connections and, you know, whether it be beekeeping, whether it be mushroom growing, whether it be eggs and chickens and whatnot. It's been really super cool being able to see these different programs across different states. So I appreciate you guys inviting us to be a partner in this. This is when you think of Oak Rehab and the meaningful work, this is it for veterans who want some sort of agricultural career. This is awesome. So thank you.
Well,
Anne
thank
Marie
you.
or
We hope to
Jeff.
grow that. Go ahead. Eileen. Well, I got to put you in the queue. I told Bev next.
Oh, sorry. I can't figure out how to raise my hand.
That's all right. Bev, did you have anything to add? And I'll go to Eileen.
I have a question. How do we find out if our state participates in the self-employment piece of the VA services?
You would just have to contact that CWT program. If you don't know who that is, I keep a list of every single program and their managers. So connect with me and I can connect you with them.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Deshauna sort of got to that, sort of hit the question, but yeah, I will connect with you. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Eileen, go ahead.
Okay, my question, a lot of the farmers I work with are the farmer veterans. They've worked hard to get their rating and they don't want to work with VAVR because they're afraid they're going to lose their disability rating. So what would you say to them? I mean, I understand permanent and total 100%, they're not going to lose their disability, but a lot of them have 80% and they just don't want to apply, and some of the equipment they need is expensive. So we really need VAVR's help. What would you say to them?
Again, we're not on the VBA side of the house. So when we get veterans who are service connected, who have expressed this concern, you know, again, whether it be service connected or social security disability or any other entitlement benefit, we go straight to the source and help the veteran get the information needed in order for them to make an informed decision. So before earning a paycheck, the goal would be to connect with VBA and understand clearly if a veteran starts working, will this impact their benefits? Yes or no? If it will, is it right away or is there a particular threshold? Lots of times there's a threshold with that permanent and total disability. So what is that threshold? And then the veteran needs to make that decision. Do they want to, knowing this information, do they want to pursue employment? Do they want to stay below a threshold? Do they want to go above that threshold? What is their desire? Knowing the information, bringing in the family so that the family is also a part of this conversation. We don't want anyone to be surprised. We don't want to jeopardize anyone's benefits if they don't want that. Our goal is to assist veterans with obtaining and maintaining employment, whatever that looks like for them. Does that make sense?
Perfect. And it'll help me help them.
Yeah.
Yeah, Eileen, this is Joe. Just a little bit of experience that I've had is that I think veterans are at times even scared to ask the question, because a lot of times if they feel like they ask the question, hey, can I do this and make $30,000 a year? They feel the government's going to say, well, if you can ask the question, you can do it. So you need to go do it and take away their benefit. And I think that's the perception that we really knock down, is that they need to feel comfortable with asking the question and understand that until they do the action, that their benefit is not in jeopardy. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, no problem. I've gotten that a few times. So any other VA questions for Anne Marie? Okay. Hey, again, I appreciate your time today, ma'am. The second thing on the agenda, actually, we had two more things today, was going to be Dr. Crystal Kyle was going to provide an update on some of the things like the AgVet grant stuff, but she had to take a meeting and walk away and wasn't available at the last minute. So we're going to have to do that next time. I did send out an email about DoD Skill Bridge program. I know there's a lot of discussion on that. I'm just going to pull up their website real quick and provide a little bit of information that I have on that. Manshi Ramdas is working on getting a skill bridge, a person from the skill bridge office to talk with us. The challenge there is that they are down for redesign right now. I know I've talked about a lot about the skill bridge because I'm a proponent for it. And I know there's different thoughts out there on it, which I completely respect. But if you see the skill bridge program, if you're not familiar with it, and I'll tell you the successes I have, is the skill bridge program is the opportunity for a service member in their last 6 months of service or less to be able to intern in some services have approved locations and some services use any location. So I'll give you examples on that. So I am getting another replacement for me. A lot of you know me for the past year and a half, that I was a product of the DoD Skill Bridge program, came to AgrAbility for about 6 months, and then got offered the position I'm in, replacing Cindy Chastain, who did a wonderful job, hard to replace. And I actually have another skill bridge person coming on. Brad Erdell will be coming on. He comes to Indiana in August. We'll start to burn his leave in August. That's military PTO time, vacation time, whatever we call it now. And then he will come to AgrAbility, the national project, around November, and be in the AgrAbility project as a skill bridge person as well. I have also, a lot of you know I manage a nonprofit, Addie's Orchard, which helps people get into beekeeping. And I have gotten my nonprofit registered with SkillBridge as well. Since that time, which has been probably about a month, been very excited about that. I've gotten 3 or 4 queries on people wanting to do SkillBridge. And what I will offer to the group, because I get these nationally, because I offer it nationally, is I am more than willing to work with the nonprofit and any of the nonprofit programs and try to help get SkillBridge people in your farms. I think that would be a bit complicated, but I also think that is also within the intent of the SkillBridge program. So on a case-by-case basis, I'd be happy to reach out to any of you and say, hey, there's a guy in Kansas who wants to be a farmer. Can you help? So that's kind of my thoughts on SkillBridge. I put the rules up there, and if you want to get into the dirt of it, more than happy to, but I've talked a lot. Ken, go ahead.
Okay, am I back on?
You're on.
Okay. Reference Schools Bridge. We've had probably 17 vets here in Kansas between Fort Riley and Fort Leavenworth transition out of the Skills Bridge into agriculture. Everything from beekeeping to high tunnel, agribusiness. The thing that has been successful with us is we visit, we have three military installations between McConnell Air Force Base, Riley, and Leavenworth, and we make a concerted effort to go in and talk to the TAP director. And so I've even gone so far as to Offutt Air Force Base, and I've spoken with the TAP director up there, although Air Force is a little different. So if there's anybody as they're transitioning out wants to get into ag, we usually get a phone call from them. And then we recently had, or 2 years ago, before the pandemic, a tanker. They're not the smartest of the branches, but anyway. So we had him intern with a local farmer here, a fourth generation cattle rancher and hog. And he spent his last 6 months in uniform. In fact, we even made the national news. So my recommendation is if there is a military installation or a guard bureau in your state, active duty in particular, Air Force, Navy, even the pesky Coast Guard, if you go hit the TAP directors and you put your name in, you give them a flyer or something, like I said, we'll get a phone call or an email and he'll go, hey, this is what I want to do. He or she, and then if we can do it, we do. If they want to intern on a farm, we've worked that with each of the TAP directors and kind of guarantee. We have one farmer that wanted to pay them. We said, don't do that because you'll screw up the program. But it's been fairly successful. I think we've had 18, and of those, probably 8 have transitioned into ag. One gal, we taught her to apply for the EQIP high tunnel. She got her high tunnel before she even got out, had 15 acres, and we had some folks go out there and help her set it up. And she's a regular at the farmer's market, and that's kind of what she does now. So I highly encourage you to contact the TAP offices, speak to the TAP directors. Some of them need some explaining, but once you kind of get in and they know that you're not, hawking snake oil, they've been very amenable. Because if that's what the soldier wants to do before they're a vet, it's been good for us, or it's been good for them.
Yeah, Ken, that's great, because I hear a whole bunch of different stories on it. And I just like to add, I think DoD Skillbridge is very service specific in the methodology to which they approve. The Army, which approved me, was under a program called Career Skills, which is actually the predecessor to DoD Skillbridge. It's what it was based off of. And it's really a 4-page MOA with whoever's going to take you, and a 4-page memorandum of understanding with the agency or organization that's letting you go. Now, I'll tell you, with Brad, it was a little more difficult because he was in the Marine Corps, and they actually were more wanting an actual DoD slot on the register to do it. So in the Marine Corps, what we did with Brad, as an example, is I got with Manchi Ramdas, who provided the MOU that USDA has under his predecessor. I can't think of Bill's last name, but Bill was his predecessor, who did an MOU with DoD Skillbridge that allowed people to get into the USDA. So Ashton, thank you. So the way I got him into AgrAbility was mainly through that MOA, and saying that AgrAbility is a grant funded organization under USDA. So, really, it's sometimes you have to satisfy the service with a little bit of legwork, which a lot of times, a lot of that legwork is on the service member. But like I said, every service is a little different. In Indiana, we suffer a little bit because we don't have any really major Army installations near us. We have Great Lakes up in Chicago, Grissom, and then some National Guard facilities. So then we have one out in Dayton, Ohio as well. That's the Air Force, but in Fort Knox, south of us. But again, I think, Ken, I think you hit it on the head. It's getting that relationship with the TAPS director saying, we'll do this if anybody knocks on your door saying, I want to get into agriculture. And just for efficiency's sake, I would look into the major installations that have large organizations there as well. So Issa, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you guys for this information. So we have a beginning farmer and rancher training program, and we have a beginning farm and ranch management apprenticeship program in the state of California. And we've been kind of kicking around the tires of working with DoD Skill Bridge, but one of the things that I'm hearing from the programs that do work with DoD Skill Bridge is that there's still an issue with the service members commander actually releasing them to participate. Is that still an ongoing issue for those of you who do participate in DoD Skill Bridge?
Ken, I'll let you weigh in. My perception is yes, it's up to the commander to do it. It's not a right. It's the commander willing to do it. Ken, do you see the same thing out there?
When we go back to when they had the warrior transition battalions, Fort Riley had a warrior transition battalion, so there was a pool there. And that's one of the ways we kind of grew the Save Farm. But to your point, yes, I mean, if you all know, the Army is, the military in general has been sucking when it comes to recruitment. So when they're short personnel, the commanders get a little greedy, I guess, if you would. But if you go all the way back up to DoD, at the Pentagon, they're supportive of it. So within that last 6 months, I know there's language in there, but there was a memorandum signed between Undersecretary of Defense and USDA actually at one point in time, and it basically says if that's what they want to do, you know, that last 6 months they're authorized. Again, it comes down to individual commanders. There's some commanders that'll actually let them go even earlier. And there's others that say, you know, no. Or instead of 6 months, you know, it's like, well, you can do it your last 30 days or something. So yes, it's individual commander, but there is a memorandum of agreement at DoD level. So if they want to dig, or if, you know, if they'd like a copy of that memorandum, then let me know. Because that way they can take it in there. Again, you don't want to be confrontational with the commander. Obviously, that doesn't go well, but you can at least start to kind of prep the battlefield, if you were, as you know, this is my future. You know, the Army said, or DoD says this, congressionally mandated that they have these transition services. So, but again, the Army, Air Force, Marines, I think are all short. Recruiting's down, so they kind of keep those people close to the chest, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I would just add, I don't even think the memorandum is going to shift the commander, because the authority from the Pentagon really goes to a lower level, and it doesn't make it a requirement for them to do it. It's not a retirement requirement. It's an opportunity. So the commander is the one that gets to sign off on it based upon his or hers opinion. So I think you might be fighting a tough battle there, even if you brought it to an IG or something. I would add, though, that I think I've had success when it comes to having something posted in the SkillBridge site, because some commanders will look at it and go, hey, that's not even posted in the SkillBridge site. If it's posted in the DoD SkillBridge site, I think you might be in a better position, or the soldier might be in a better position as well.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Any other comments or thoughts on that? So more than happy to share more on DoD SkillBridge on a one-on-one basis. But again, if I get somebody that's interested in a state, I may reach out and just find out if you're willing to have them under SkillBridge, because there's a lot of people leaving service, and there's a lot of people that desire that opportunity if they can get it approved. So any other comments or questions for the good? So lastly, I would just ask, we want to have this discussion once a month or as topics arise? Or how do we want to continue to meet? Any thoughts on that? Okay.
I
nothing
think
hurt.
one,
Go
I
ahead.
think once a month is great. That's what
Okay.
I think. Yeah.
Okay, and I'll try to base it on, I'll try to get Manshi and Crystal here too, just to kind of give us an update. I think the Ag Vet Board, I don't want to speak for Crystal, I think met already. So those Ag Vet grants, hopefully are in the process someplace at USDA. I know Manshi's working on a few things. I also know that Small Business Association, Veteran Business Outreach Center is working on a farmer-specific Boots to Business program. So there's a lot of goodness out there. And if anybody has an idea on what they would like, or if they want to bring a topic to the group, I'll schedule one next month as well. Okay, I'll stay on for a couple of minutes, but I appreciate everybody's time, and I hope it was valuable for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.